All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a deep dive into Malta's Permanent Residence Program, the MPRP. There have been some huge changes for 2025, and if you're even thinking about getting a secure foothold in Europe, this is a program you've absolutely got to know about. So, here's the game plan. We'll kick things off with what makes Malta so appealing in the first place. Then, we'll unpack the program itself, get into the nitty-gritty of the crucial 2025 updates, and of course, break down the costs. Finally, we'll weigh the good with the not so good to give you the full picture. So first up, why Malta? Why are so many successful people looking at this tiny island in the Mediterranean? Well, it really comes down to one thing: creating a rock-solid Plan B. And really, it all boils down to one big question, doesn't it? In a world that feels more unpredictable by the day, how do you lock in stability, freedom of movement, and real opportunity for your family's future? For a lot of people, Malta is becoming a very compelling answer. And when you look at the benefits, it's easy to see why. You get visa-free travel across all 29 Schengen countries. That's huge. You also get access to top-notch EU healthcare and education. Plus, Malta is safe, it's politically stable, and it's an English-speaking country, which makes life a lot easier. And the real kicker? A great tax system for residents, and you don't even have to live there full-time to keep your status. Okay, so that's the why. Now let's talk about the how. What's the key that unlocks all of this? That would be the Malta Permanent Residence Program. The MPRP is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a formal, government-backed program that gives you a direct path to permanent, and I mean lifelong, residency. You make a qualifying investment, and in return, you and your family get the right to live in Malta forever and travel freely across Europe. Okay, so who can actually get this? Well, the main applicant has to be over 18, obviously with a clean criminal record. And you have to pass an incredibly strict 4-tier due diligence process. It's genuinely one of the toughest in the world. On the financial side, you need to show you have at least €500,000 in assets, and 150,000 of that needs to be liquid. Think cash, stocks, things you can access quickly. And of course, there are restrictions on nationals from sanctioned countries. Now, here's one of the most powerful parts of the whole deal. The way they define family is incredibly generous. You can bring your spouse, of course, but you can also include unmarried, financially dependent kids of any age. And you can include financially dependent parents and even grandparents. We're talking up to 4 generations on a single application. That's a real game changer. All right, now for the part you've been waiting for, the big shakeup for 2025. As of January 1st, a bunch of new rules kicked in, and they've actually simplified the whole program and added some seriously valuable flexibility for investors. This is important stuff. And just to be clear, these aren't just small suggestions. These are official government changes. It's all laid out in Legal Notice 146 of 2025. This thing has completely overhauled the program's pricing and introduced some fantastic new features. So the first big change? Simplicity. It used to be that the government contribution you had to pay was different depending on if you bought a property or rented one. It was confusing. Well, that's gone. Now it's just one single flat contribution of €37,000 for everybody. So much easier. And here's another huge update. They've introduced a new temporary permit. What this means is you can actually move to Malta and get your family settled while the main application is being processed, which usually takes about 6 to 12 months. So you can start your new life almost right away after you pass those initial checks. They have also made the property investment itself a lot more flexible, which is a big deal. If you decide to buy a property, you can now legally rent it out when you're not using it. And if you're renting, you can now sublet your place after that initial 5-year commitment is up. That just wasn't an option before. Okay, let's talk money. What's the bottom line here? What is this actually going to cost you under these new 2025 rules? Let's break it all down. So you've got 2 main ways to go about this: rent or buy. With the renting option, you're committing to at least €14,000 a year in rent for 5 years. If you buy, you're looking at a property worth at least $375,000. Now, on top of that, everybody pays the same non-refundable costs: that new $37,000 government contribution, a $60,000 admin fee, and a small $2,000 donation to a charity. And if you want to add an adult dependent, say a parent, that's an extra $7,500 each. So, you add it all up for the rental route, and you're looking at a minimum total investment of around €169,000. Now, to put that in perspective, that makes this one of the most accessible permanent residency programs of its kind anywhere in Europe. Now, if you'd rather own your property, the starting investment is going to be around €474,000. Yeah, it's a bigger number up front, but here's the key difference. A huge chunk of that, the property itself, is a real asset that you own and can sell after 5 years. All right, now that we've crunched the numbers, let's zoom out a bit. It's time to get balanced and really look at the pros and the cons. Because look, this program is fantastic, but is it the right move for everyone? Does its structure really line up with your specific goals, both for your family and your finances? That's the real question you have to ask yourself. On the plus side, the advantages are, well, they're huge. You get lifelong residency status the moment you're approved. There is no minimum stay requirement, which is amazing. The whole process is pretty quick, 6 to 12 months, and that multi-generational family inclusion is just incredible. Plus, if you do become a tax resident, Malta's tax system is very attractive. Foreign capital gains aren't taxed. But you've got to go in with your eyes open. On the flip side, a big chunk of that money, over 99,000 euros in fees and contributions, is non-refundable. You just don't get it back. You also have to keep a residential address in Malta to keep your card active. And like I said, that due diligence process is no joke. Finally, you'll need to provide solid proof that any adult kids or parents really are financially dependent on you. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. After all of that, what's the final verdict? Let's boil it all down to the key things you need to walk away with. Here's what you absolutely need to remember. First, the MPRP is a straight shot to lifelong residency in the EU. Second, the new 2025 changes have made it simpler and way more investor-friendly. Third, yes, it requires a serious investment, and a lot of that is non-refundable. And finally, it's an absolutely outstanding Plan B for anyone whose top priorities are stability, keeping the whole family together, and easy travel in Europe, more so than actually getting a new citizenship. And that really leaves us with a bigger question, doesn't it? In a world that seems to get more chaotic every year, having a program like this is less of a luxury and more of a strategic tool for future-proofing your life. So the real question to think about is, how will having these kinds of permanent residency rights fundamentally change the landscape of global opportunity over the next 10 years?